and welcome to today's session, Sourcing Inventory in the COVID Era, the Retail Dealer Perspective. Before we start, let's review a few items to help you participate during this event. Here is a sample attendee interface or control panel. You should see something like this on your own computer in the upper left corner. You may submit text questions by typing into the chat pane of the control panel. Questions may be sent at any time. We will collect these and address them at the end of today's presentation. When submitting your question, please indicate if you would like the question directed to a specific panelist or to all. Now, I would like to introduce Chuck Bonanno, Vice President of Dealer Development at NIADA.
Well, welcome everybody to the NIADA Virtual Convention 2020 and this afternoon session, which is sourcing inventory in the COVID era. From the retail dealer perspective, we do have one for the buy here, pay here's perspective that's also going to air. But this has been a very interesting time, and I know my panelists today, who are going to introduce themselves in a few seconds, will share with you the trials and tribulations since their lockdowns and the pandemic began till now, and then probably give you some insight on the best possible ways to take care of inventory acquisition today and then in tomorrow. So with that being said, let's introduce our panelists, and we'll start with Joe Mock.
Hi, my name is Joe Mock. I'm the founder and general manager of G Motor Cars. As you can see in the back, we've been in business for a little over 10 years now. This was printed last year. We're located in the Chicagoland area. We generally stock anywhere between 100 and 120 cars. And we're about a 80 to 85 unit store a month.
Okay. And Joe, where do you typically source your inventory under normal times and conditions?
We source them through several different outlets. CarMax auctions, Manheim's, your ACV, your independent auctions. We also do a lot of fleet and rental. Those vehicles are not real profitable. They do bring in a good amount of trades. So buying from your Hertz's and your Enterprise, you'll make some money on the back end part of it, but you're not going to make a lot on the front end. But what it does is it does bring in a good amount of trades.
All right. Well, Joe, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And Brenna.
Hi, Brenna Stansberry. I am in Northern California at Park Marina Motors. We carry anywhere between 80 and 100 vehicles in stock, and right now we're currently selling anywhere between 50 and 60. We normally source our inventory from what would be a local auction for us is about 2.5 hours away.
Nice.
But we have been sticking with those as well as up in Washington. I have a buyer that flies up to Washington to buy.
Well, great. Thank you and welcome. And I appreciate both of you taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. It's been pretty interesting times. Again, as a moderator of 20 groups, I've not found the pandemic page in the moderator or consultant or trainer handbook. Been trying to muddle our way through this, and interestingly enough, we've gotten through the economic portion of this with PPP loans and the ability to stay open in some form, or retail cars in some form or not. Most of us kept our employees. We've been able to sell in retail cars. I know many of us learned how to be a digital retailer if we weren't already during this one. But the one thing that has been universal across the board is a purely supply and demand issue with inventory, our lifeblood, and certainly not having the physical auctions for some period of time put a new wrench in this fire. So what I'd like to do right now, if you guys wouldn't mind kind of sharing with the group, sometimes I think it's just great for everyone to know that they're not in this alone. Why don't you share with us how it was that March 15th to April 15th, the end of the world month? What happened maybe over the summer months, and now as we go into fall, how are things looking right now in the inventory acquisition and inventory pricing right now in the wholesale markets? Joe, you want to start with that one?
That March was the scariest. I remember going home. Right when they started shutting down, saying everybody shut down and go home, I remember going to my wife and saying, "I think I see the end. I don't know if we're going to be able to survive this." but I said I'm going to go to work. It's just going to be me and one other employee after we determined that we were essential in Illinois, and we went with a small crew,
Mhm.
and we just hammered through it. And then we started to see, well, first of all, we were watching our cars just depreciate to nothing. And if I recall, there was also a meeting from Mannheim and Next Gear and Next Gear Specialists and all that stuff saying, hey, it's going to be pretty bad. Luxury cars are going to dive 80% and expect the worst and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, a light that came through the window and our phones started to ring. And all of a sudden, people were coming in and buying cars. And as the months progressed, April, and then May was just, our industry was a perfect storm. And when people walk in here and say, hey, are you struggling? Are you giving cars away? I look at them and I said, no, our industry is the toilet paper industry. And I say, it was the perfect storm of what happened, and nobody predicted it, even
Right.
the economist. All the rental car companies got nervous and sold off all their inventory because they didn't think travel was going to come back. Well, people weren't flying, they were going to rent cars. So they needed to buy their inventory back. We were selling cars like crazy. The inventory for the rental cars, I used to get the sheets, and they were cars. So it was really, really scary. I think everybody experienced this. Thank God it was probably for, I think, 30 or 40 days, as scary as it was. But it bounced back pretty good. And the one thing that I found out through this pandemic and through everything, the used car industry, or through that whole thing, manufacturers stopped building the cars, which was probably the biggest factor of this.
Mhm.
But we are, I don't want to say we're resilient, but I want to say there's never been a better time to be in the auto business than now. And I think most of us have been through a recession of 08, 09. That's different than what it is now. Um, people have money. They didn't have, they couldn't go out and spend it, and they wanted to treat themselves to cars. They wanted to treat themselves to trucks, recreational vehicles. And that's what drove diesel trucks up, is people know that they can't take the traditional vacations. So they went out and bought campers. They went out and bought boats. They realized that their Ford Explorers can't tow these toys that they bought. Well, that's why you're seeing a huge spurt in the bigger trucks, the Suburbans, the Tahoes, the diesel stuff. Um, I don't want to say it all right now, but I think we are going to see this spurt until 2021, especially if a new stimulus package comes out by the 15th. It's going to throw us right into tax season, and then you'll ride this out till July 20 or July 2021 is 21 is what I'm predicting.
All right, very good. Thank you, Joe. Brenna, how were those early days in Redding, California?
Well, I would say that we were in the same boat that everybody else was in, just wondering with deep concern on what direction everything was going to go. Was it going to tank like the experts were telling us? I was getting calls from my reps, from my flooring companies, from my banks saying, "Be careful. What are you doing buying? The market's going to be flooded." And we experienced the exact opposite, as many of us have. I'm grateful because of the PPP loan came out that gave us a cushion, that gave us the ability to buy more cars. In March, I wish I wasn't as careful as I was, because I bought a lot of cars with a lot of people telling me not to buy cars. Don't be buying cars. You're going to be tanked in them. You're crazy. Well, it's the first time in my lifetime, I've been in this business 26 years, and the first time in 26 years, I've been able to buy a Toyota Tacoma $5,000 back a wholesale book. Right now, they're trying to get retail book at a wholesale auction for a Tacoma. So hindsight, of course, I wish I would have bought, you know,
Sure.
every vehicle available to me back then, but I was being careful. And as we've moved forward into the summer months, and now even coming out of the summer months, up here in Reading, it's 111 degrees yesterday. Without it being Labor Day, as a rule, we would not see that much traffic on a day like that. But we're consistently selling cars every month, whether it's hot or cold. We expect our July to be a slow month because it's so hot up here. It was not at all. We've had a record 3 to 4 months of sales throughout this pandemic, which is an absolute blessing in disguise. We've never expected it. But I have just watched this market go crazy like I've never seen before. Watching the trucks go for over retail book, in my mind, is crazy. I don't see how somebody can, clearly it's not their own money is how I look at it. Coming from somebody that's spending my own money, owning the business personally, they are clearly spending somebody else's money. And what I see coming forward over the next 30 to 60 days is not only is our market is still unsure of where it's going to go. We're heading into an election that everybody is unsure of what direction it's going to go, no matter who becomes our president. So I just I wish I had a crystal ball for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not in the handbook, even with 26 years in this thing. One of the things that's interesting is that, to Joe's point, you know, this is not a full-fledged recession like 08 and 09. It may become one. I know certainly there are some economists predicting that in the early 2021 that will start to feel it across all industries and all income stratuses. And we're not really feeling that right now, which is great. And certainly stimulus money that was put out there to our consumers helped everyone get at least a little comfort, and they can make a big ticket purchase. And that's wonderful. The election is looming over us. But new car stores not getting inventory, and because the manufacturers didn't print them, really was probably that one wrench in the fire we didn't all see coming. And that one's going to be much slower to come around. I've heard some of the economists talk about the lines are up and running, but they're not producing all cars. And that could not have come at a worse time, because it was really nearing the end of the model year. Right. So if you're shut down in May, are you really going to start it up in August printing 2020 cars? You know, it's probably not a good idea from their end. So that's going to be a little bit slow. So I think we've got that. I positively agree with you on the election. I think the whole world is in a wait and see mode on that one. But they also shut down the physical auctions. Okay, for most of us who love being in the lanes, I know Joe, he's on the road 24/7, somewhere in the country trying to buy cars, and Brenna has to go hours just to get to a real town. No, I didn't say that. To find cars, but when you didn't have physical auctions, it threw all of us into this online and digital buying mode. And some of us have been doing it for a while and gotten really good at it. Some of us, this was a new experience for us. So I'd like to hear from both you guys about how did you manage the no physical auctions, and now that they're starting to come back online, are you getting back into those lanes? Brenna, we'll start with you this time.
Well, I think the thing most of us miss about the physical auctions is the personal relationships that we have with not only our friends at the auction, but the other dealers that we get to see on a weekly basis. I miss talking to the dealers that are down in the Bay Area, that are seeing something a little bit different than we're seeing, and I miss my friends. As far as being able to, our auctions in California have not opened back up at all. Everything's still online. They most of them are not even running the vehicles through the lane at the time of the auction, which doesn't bother me one way or the other. I'm not standing there, so it doesn't really matter. Some of the independents are trying really hard to open back up, but it has made me a little bit more diligent of a buyer. I do more of what I would call homework the day before. I do a lot more research. I have lists that I go off of. I still buy what I would call in lane without doing homework, because something just happens to pop in that I didn't see. That doesn't seem to be any different than what I did before. I'm not seeing the air bids, which I kind of like that. And, you know, that stuff just drives me crazy. But, you know, I have to drive 2.5 hours to get to an auction. So is it better use of my time to buy online? Absolutely. Can I buy any better? Maybe. I don't know. I'm still old school. I want to touch it, see it, smell it. I'm just trying to have a little bit more faith in their CRs, and I think if they could get a handle on having a better parameters on what would make a 3.5 compared to a 4, or vice versa, that would probably benefit the auctions as well as all of us that are out there buying, going, what, are you crazy? This can't be a 3.5.
Right. Thank you. And Joe?
Yeah, you know what, I would go to a physical auction because I had a taste for popcorn. I love the popcorn machine and all the, you know, and I could fly down to Florida and, you know, they had awesome lunches and stuff like that, especially in Odessa, Sarasota. It was always great food. And you know, a lot of the auctioneers are excellent. They're great. I think one of the great things that have happened is they've kind of hybrided it. They incorporated the live auctioneers with the online bidding. So on ACV, you're just bidding on a car. There's no auctioneer or anything like that. And you know, with the simulcast and some of the CarMax auctions, you still have the auctioneer. There is still a need for that auctioneer still in this. But totally bidding online is so much more useful than going to the physical auction. I always said, oh, auctions running 1,000 cars. Okay, out of the 1,000 cars, 30% you're going to look at 300 cars. You're going to run them all. Out of that 30%, you're going to down to 100 cars. You're going to physically go look at them. You're not going to be happy with them, and you're only going to win 10 of them. What a waste of time, you know. And it's exhausting. You get bidder fatigue.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're at your office and you're bidding, and you're in a go to what is this, Zoom or go to webinar, whatever it is, meeting, you know, just say you're doing this, you can also bid on cars online. You can research other stuff. But anyway,
attention.
yeah. So there's so much. It's so much more useful of your time to bid in your office. Yes, I do miss the camaraderie. I miss the, you know, going out and talking to everyone, and you know, but you, in front of your computer, you have so much more use of your tools, purchasing things and making better decisions. And I think this is the way it's going to be for quite a bit. I don't see live auctions besides the independents, the Manheim and Odessa. I think they're going to find out that they're able to cut some cost, and people are still buying online by, you know, whether the CR is CarMax is a perfect example. We don't have a CR. We're bidding off of 10 pictures. We're bidding. It's called bidding roulette. Is what I call it. And when the car comes here, we go, oh, wow, I didn't see that damage there, and they didn't announce it. And we can't arbitrate for it, but it's definitely changed how we purchase cars.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about they've been able to buy close to as well as physically touching the vehicles as far as quality of car and it being pretty much on that part. We'll talk about the money here shortly. But they said it's exhausting the number of cars that I actually have to bid on to get the number I need. And to Joe, to your point though, I'd still rather do that, bid on 500 cars today from my desk than being out there in 110-degree weather and then finding out you're getting slaughtered at every turn.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So one of the things I think that's out there, and I've done about 6 20 group meetings since we've been back on the road. And, you know, like I said, highline dealers, exotics, retail, buy here, pay here. You know, everybody's struggling with this. And really what everyone's asking each other, and what I'm asking you two is, did you find any alternative places to buy inventory? Anything different than what you normally do that worked, or any that you tried that maybe didn't work? Joe, you want to go with that for me?
You know, the best advice I can give to somebody is go to the path of least resistance. And yeah, prices of cars are definitely high. They're ridiculous. I post on our independent group saying, hey, the window sticker on this car is $40,000. It just sold for $39,800. Well, what's going on? You can tell who's the buyer and who's the owner. You know what I mean? You've been on them. But one thing that's helped me is really looking into some of the independent auctions and looking some of the alternative sites such as CarMax auctions, the auction pipeline, ACV, TradeRev, and some of the other apps that are out there. Go to Manheim and Odessa to look for specific vehicles for a client and customer. But I do not sit in a lane and just watch and just and buy from there, because that's where your masses are going. They're going there, and that's what's driving a lot of, obviously, masses are driving up. Look at the path of least resistance. The idea of buying from Hertz or your local enterprise rental cars, there's no buy fees when you buy their cars. And even though some of their prices may be higher, taking a Camry, buy a Camry for $15,000. You know what? Get that car back to your shop, put it online for $15,500. Be less than everyone else. Your phone's going to blow up. You're going to get a client in. You'll be able to sell them a warranty. You'll get some back end in the finance, and you'll get a beautiful trade out of it. I don't want to call it the bait car, but it is the bait car. So that's an alternative way. But the Odessas and the Manheims and some of those bigger auctions, and we're talking about alternative avenues and acquiring inventory without paying these absorbent prices. I can't compete with the Chevy stores and Toyota stores that are down the road and the Ford stores during this time. So I choose to go to the path of least resistance, less amount of bidders in order to acquire a vehicle.
Great. Thank you very much. And Brenna, how about you?
We've kind of been spreading our wings a little bit more, searching on Facebook Marketplace, which is something I didn't spend a whole lot of time doing before. I've offered a buy fee to my employees if they bring somebody in that they found on the street or down the, at Safeway that had a for sale sign in their window. I pay them a buy fee instead of paying an auction buy fee, and we're able to pick those vehicles up a lot cheaper. Facebook, just our Facebook business page, once a week I put an ad up that we buy cars. We buy cars, paid off or not. I try and mix it up and make it sound different and attract somebody. But we always get leads from that. Always get leads from that. So, and even Craigslist, going back to the old school Craigslist, if you still search Craigslist, you're going to be able to find 3 or 4 or 5 cars that you can look into, which we're doing that way more than we were doing it, even though we should have been doing it, a year ago.
Sure.
So, Facebook.
Good, very good. Did either of you become a KBB or an Edmunds Buy Center, those things out there? The programs where people bring the car to you? Okay. Okay, so here comes the $1 million question. Look, my buy here, pay here dealers, they're going to be in the other session, and when they have to pay $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 too much for a car, they just finance it. They suck it up, they borrow the money or put in their own money, they retail it, they stretch the terms, they do all this great stuff that being the bank allows you to do. So now that I see Joe Mock post crash trucks bringing retail online, how are we going to handle and really get consumers financed with these extremely high wholesale prices, plus transportation, plus additional recon? And I have heard from my indirect lending group that the banks are very skittish about going with you on what you pay. They're very fearful that the books will come right back to where they were. We know better, but that's what they fear. So Joe, how do you get over that hump when you're paying that much for a car?
Some of the vehicles out there, you have no choice but to, if NADA, a lot of my lenders base off NADA clean trade.
Yep.
And you're really hammering for money down. And when I'm buying a car and I see that I use vAuto, and it says, hey, you need to pay $20,000 for this car to sell for $24,000. I look at NADA and it's 13 grand. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But the data is the data of what is selling on the streets. Okay. So do I pay attention to NADA? Absolutely, I do. But it's not the end all be all, because obviously those vehicles are selling for those prices to somebody, and somebody's coming in with a trade-in and some money. Thankfully, I haven't had that much of an issue with the book out stuff yet. And depending on your lender, some of them will take your auction buy slip and use that as your book out. But to be honest with you, it's obviously I do watch that, and they're especially on the commercial side, NADA has no clue what commercial trucks are NADA in trade. I would love to buy them for that, but you just got to work your clients and work your customers, and hopefully they got a trade that works in. But you're also working with transportation. I don't know if we're going to talk about that in the next. Okay, well, I'll save that for that. But you just work your clients for their down payments, and they have a trade in.
Yeah, very good. Brenda, how about you?
I've been really trying to be mindful about which ones I pay too much money for. If it's going to be a truck, it better be a pretty truck, a good looking, lifted, big tires and wheels, one of those family trucks. If I'm going to pay all the money for a truck, that's what it's going to be for. A car, there's a difference between buying a Ford Focus and buying a Toyota Camry. Which one are you going to pay all the money for?
Right.
So I'm just very, very careful. I'm seeing the same thing Joe's seeing. You see a truck that's selling for retail, where you can buy a brand new one for the same price if you can find one. So I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. I refuse to do it. Doing the best I can with what we have and searching high and low to find things to replace what's selling.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So that kind of ties right to this next question. So I would just kind of, without having to go into the details of your financial statements. So you guys obviously have been able to retail the cars that you've paid way too much money for over the last 90 or 100 days. And Joe, I think you've already kind of intimated that. You said, look, I'm going to make the car move fast. It's a commodity. If I get it all the profit on the back end and F&I, then that's where I'm going to get it. But it's got to get here, get moving, and go. Brenna, how about you? Sales been pretty good. I know California's been a very challenging state from regulations and rules to operate.
Sure. We're lucky being located in Northern California, and when I mean Northern, I mean almost Oregon. With that being said, we're kind of out of the limelight. If I was located in Sacramento, in the middle of the city, if I was in the LA area, I'm sure they're facing struggles that we have no idea or no clue what they're having to deal with. Up here in Shasta County, we're very grateful that our sheriff's department and our police departments are hands off when it comes to trying to shut down a business. They won't do it. And our California governor, believe it or not, left a loophole and said if you have a repair shop, you can stay open. So that was pretty grateful for that, to be honest with you. As far as passing on the high prices, I've never seen Kelley Blue Book adjust so quickly. I thought to myself that, we're going to be in big trouble here, because which way are they going to go? And I watched them rise quicker than I've ever seen books rise. And I'm not sure if NADA did the same thing, but I am booking my cars. Kelley Blue Book changes every Friday. I am rebooking my cars every Friday, repricing my cars every Friday, staying on top of that. If I see something that's not moving, we're on it right away. Why isn't that car moving? Why is it becoming old? Everything we can, more now than ever before, to find out why a car is not selling and adjusting our prices, because I'd much rather sell it now than 90 days from now, when I'm not making any money on that car.
That's right. That's right. Joe, you want to add to that at all?
Although in this industry, in this going on now, 90 days may be worth more. So
yeah, go ahead.
no, you know what's interesting is she's saying Kelly Blue Book. I'm in Chicago in the Midwest, and Kelly Blue Book's really not even relevant out here. Nobody really deals with it. And you know, NADA seems to be where what we use out here. And Black Book just died by the side. I don't even use Black Book anymore. You have your KUBs, you have NADAs, you have your MMRs and stuff like that. And sessions about acquiring inventory. And I see a lot in the independent group that the dealer says, "Oh, the MMR in this car was $1,000. How are we supposed to buy it?" Last month we bought, or I bought 80, somewhere 82, 83 cars, and it's been a consistent 70 to 80 each month for the past 3 months. I will tell you that I do not use MMR. Everyone goes, "Oh my God, you're lying." Never buy that. But the two factors that matter to me, what I can sell it for, how much can I purchase it for, and everything that's in between. So if MMR is $10,000, but I know that these cars are retailing for $17,000, why not pay $13,000 for it if it doesn't need anything? You're still going to make $4,000. So the number that you should be really concerned about in your area is what can you sell that vehicle for, and how fast can you sell that? That's the most important thing to me right now. So when I'm booking out vehicles, MMR, I swear to God, has zero impact. I don't even look at it anymore. The only time I've looked at MMR is when I'm going to buy a cookie cutter rental, or a Camry or something like that, 2020 with 15,000 miles. That's when I'll look at MMR just to make sure that it's in line with whoever I'm buying it. But you cannot use, I don't use MMR at all when we're buying a vehicle.
Great. Thank you. So as we're getting here to the end of September, as we air this session, have you seen any softening of the wholesale prices in a material way where you're shopping, Brenna?
Actually, I have in certain areas and with certain vehicles. I'm watching the cars start to drop. And that can change tomorrow. And I've seen that ebb and flow from day to day, where I was able to pick up some cars and smaller SUVs last week, but still couldn't touch a truck to save my life. So are things softening? Yeah, but I think you're watching them soften and then tighten right back up, and it's changing every single day, every day. You just have to watch it every day.
Every day. And Joe?
Yeah, this is a stock market. I mean,
exactly.
We're not in the car business. We're in the cash business.
And we're day trading.
Yeah, this is day trading. I think we can all agree that cookie cutters and your basic cars, those are just those are Coke cans, kicking down the road. But your unique vehicles, those are the ones that are just really holding the money. I haven't seen those adjust. I actually see those keep going up a little bit this week, and I did get some of the less desirable stuff. Elantra. Our medium price car here was $19,000 with 100 cars in stock, and I'm going, oh my God! Somebody comes in, they want a 10 grand under car, and I'm going, I got nothing to show you. So I really concentrated this week on purchasing some vehicles that we could sell for 10 grand and under. And I did see a little softening. I was surprised. Actually, it's kind of funny. When you buy a vehicle that's on the money now, you think you made a mistake. And you go back to it and look and go, what did I do? I think I made a mistake. But those vehicles, do sit a little longer than the vehicle, than an F-250 diesel, what, for $48,000, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm buying this for $46,000. Am I going to sit on it? Is there going to be curtailments? Is there going to be high interest? All of a sudden, a week later, it's gone. I can't figure it out. So is there softening? It's softening where it needs to right now. The desirable vehicles are not softening. I don't see those coming down.
Okay, Very good. So with online buying and buying cars from 200, 500, 1,000, 2,000 miles away, and these auctions not being open, we've had a lot of feedback that transportation is not just an issue in cost, which I do want you guys to address, but also in time. Time to get these cars from a sale to your dealership. How have you been able to manage that, or have you been able to manage that? Or are you just eating it? Joe?
I think I'm an expert in this now. I'm an expert travel. I'm an expert travel agent now too. Built a lot of points with Expedia. Transportation. Here was one of the things in our industry. We didn't realize that transportation would collapse. What I heard happen, what I think happened, was when the borders were starting to shut and they were going to cut out the flying. We know that a lot of transport drivers are foreigners, and I think they bailed. You know, we use central dispatch, and what we're finding is, okay, we're buying these vehicles out of state. We can't get them moved. It's taken 2, 3, 4 weeks. So what we've had to do is we've had to get retirees, unemployed people who don't mind driving, because, and including me, if you see me, if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you see I would fly out and go get cars. And weekly, we send people weekly to Texas, Florida, Oklahoma. I just had someone dropped off this morning to North Carolina. We use a website called SkipLag. SkipLag, it tells you the cheapest route to get there. So, you know, if it's a connecting flight, but it has a drop off in the destination you need to go, sometimes that's cheaper. For example, we had a car in North Carolina. It was a flight from Chicago to Miami. The stopover in Charlotte, North Carolina, was cheaper than a direct flight from Chicago to Charlotte. So we're using tools like that. We're not being cheap about this. We're paying our drivers good amounts of money to drive. We're paying them an average $400 to $500 a trip within 1,000 miles. But we're getting our cars within 48 hours. So I would suggest that if you want to find out more about that, you can follow up with me offline. But it's a huge pain in the butt, but flying people out.
Yeah, and Joe, when you send those people to an auction in South Florida, any problems getting the car, finding the car at these sales? I know that was a problem early on. They didn't even know where the cars were.
Yeah. You know what? You definitely want to fly your employees in during the times that they're open. Because there's nothing worse than getting a call on a Friday at 7 o'clock. And it just happened this week. It happened Friday. Hey, I'm here. The car won't start. There's no antifreeze in the reservoir, and I had to look around. I got to jump, and now the water pump is making all kinds of noise. I haven't had a problem with location. I've had a problem with time because the auctions did shore up their times. But you definitely, when you do this, you definitely want to do it during working hours because in case there is a situation that happens, you have some help.
Good point. Good point. And Brenna, how about you? How are you dealing with the transportation and the time to frontline issues?
You know, we've been pretty fortunate up here in where we are. Those of us that buy out of the Sacramento and San Francisco area have a local transporter that has several trucks, and he pretty much does almost all the transport for all the dealerships up here in Northern California. And we've been with him for over 20 years, so we feel really lucky that we have the connection with him that we've had in the relationship for the past 20 years. And with that being said, if I had to deal with what Joe has to deal with, I would be completely gray. Yeah, I would have that going on too, because that would stress me out so much. You know, that green light car that you bought and got a PSI and post-sale inspection, it comes, you know, they're like, yeah, it's a good car. And then you fly somebody down there and find out that it's got a bad tranny. I couldn't do it. My heart couldn't handle it. I would just stress out so much. So we're not seeing that problem because we are staying as local as possible. but before COVID hit, I was flying down to San Diego once or twice a month to hit some auctions down there. I have not done that since, just because of not only not being able to get down there, because I could buy those online, but because of the transportation issue. So I am staying away from the transportation issue by not buying from far away and having those problems. I couldn't. So kudos to you. I couldn't do it.
So real fast, it was pretty funny because, well, it wasn't funny, but they're calling me at 7 o'clock, freaking out that the truck is stay running or whatever the case is. And I said, okay, just go get a hotel. I had to book him, at an Expedia hotel. And I said, you know what? I have another car in North Carolina. I'll fly you out in the morning from Orlando to North Carolina, and you can go grab that. You have to get Ubers to the airport. Then when they fly out, well, I was half in the bag. I was exhausted. When I booked his ticket, she booked it under my name.
Oh, no.
Or puts the record locator, and he goes, why did you put it under your name? It's not under my name. And then I had to go to the counter. He had to buy a new ticket. It was a nightmare. The best thing the airlines could have done is give us credits on flights, because now I have a credit for me. But it can be cumbersome. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting near the end here. We got time for a few more. So I know we've talked about what you've done up till now, and probably what you're going to do. Are you going to change any of your inventory management, inventory levels, any way you manage the asset itself? Are you going to change that as we move forward, Brenna?
Yeah, something I learned that I've been trying to tell the old school, aka my father, that still helps out at the dealership. What I've been trying to tell him for the past years is you don't have to have 100 cars to sell 50. That old school thinking, and I think there are still some that still think that, and I've got the birdie in my ears telling me that. I don't buy that. I believe that you can turn your inventory so much better, manage your assets so much better by carrying 80 to sell 60. And so having that so clear and evident, our lot is half empty right now, and we are still selling cars. I keep on hearing, but if you had more, you might sell more. Well, you're probably right, but I'm not going to, it goes back to that. I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm not going to buy more cars just to have more cars on the lot. So just the asset management part of it, and looking at our financial statement and looking at our turn last month for our trucks, our turn was 12. I've never had a turn of 12 on my trucks. I've hit 9 on my cars and SUVs, and then 12 this past month on my trucks. And that asset management is something that I've never been able to accomplish before, and I've never think that I would thank something like COVID for helping out my asset management. So just taking away some of those old school myths that you have to have, 50% more inventory or twice as much to sell, half as many. That has been very, very clear to be very, very untrue nowadays.
Excellent point. How about you, Joe?
You're getting me excited when you're talking about turn and days and inventory. And every morning, the first thing I do is I hop in my Viato and I look at it. I am so excited to be. We're 13. I think today was like 13.26, and we're at 28 days. But you're 100% right. Buy the vehicles that are going to turn fast. And one of the on the sheet that Chuck provided, give some advice and stuff like that. One of the things in there is you need to be fast, you need to be knowledgeable, and don't fall in love with anything. If wholesale is not part of your game, it should be. And I tell you what, we've made some great profits off the wholesale because of what's going on here. Back in March, I go back to looking at Viato and being depressed. I was at a four turn, 80 days in inventory. 130 cars and we're only selling 30 or 40 cars. Brenna's is 100% right. You know what? I think last month was around 80, and I think we finished off with like 78 or 80 in inventory, with probably 20 in the wings that are being prepped up for the next month. So you're right. You don't have to load up. Just buy what's selling, and watch your market day supply of that unit. If you buy the right unit, you'll be able to keep turning them. I'm excited. We're in September, and usually my employees call or say Joe's on suicide watch, because this is what happened is you had a great summer, then you ran out and bought a ton of inventory, but all of a sudden, and you bought it at the height, and it's starting to slow down. Well, September, we're September 9th right now, and I believe we're sitting around 30 cars for the month. And that's exciting for me. I look at 2019, what a change. And so I don't know how long this is going to roll out, but I am watching the inventory, and I am making sure that we're not getting over our head. And she's right, keep less is more.
Great. Thank you very much for that one. And as we get to the final questions here, again, we'll have time to answer many more if you guys come up with them as you watch and listen from the audience. But again, you've got folks here who've been in this business for a long time. Brenna, it feels like most of our adult life. What advice would you give somebody, especially somebody who hasn't been through, who wasn't around in 08 or 09, or hasn't seen the highs and lows? What advice would you give them, especially as it relates to inventory acquisition and asset management? Brenna?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, goodness. My advice for inventory acquisition and asset management: buy the cars that sell the fastest. You can't say that too many times. Get on your Facebook group pages and listen and hear what other dealers are saying. But also, you got to go with your gut. You got to know what's good for you. When I was being told that I was crazy for buying cars back in March and April, I was like, I don't agree with you guys. And at the time I was like, gosh, I hope I'm right, because I could very easily have been wrong. But you still have to go with some of your own gut instincts. But the thing I wrote down more times than not on my homework was buy the cars that sell the fastest. If you can do that, don't hold out for a big gross. If you've got a bird in the hand and you can make $1,000 on the front and $1,000 on the back, turn it and get another car. Turn your cars faster. Don't pass up any deal. Wholesale your cars if they're not selling. Find somebody else that can sell it. Don't sit on them. Don't fall in love. And try really, really hard to keep your relationships going with other dealers, and maybe do some trading.
Sure.
Of your old inventory. Just because you can't sell it doesn't mean somebody else can't, just across the street from you.
Perfect. And Joe, why don't you take us home with your advice to our audience?
Know your market. What sells in my market may not sell well in Brenna's market. If you go on my website right now, tell me how many Honda Civics, even though everybody loves them, I have 0, because we can't sell them in this market. But I know your inventory, know your product, and turn and burn. Don't fall in love with anything. And that's the best advice I can give to anybody who's new getting into this. Don't hold out. Maybe if it's a pink Cadillac, maybe hold out for that. I don't know. But if you've got a 15 Silverado and you have an opportunity to make, and a lot of guys will cringe at this, but you have an opportunity to make $800, blow it out, goodbye. And a lot of guys will say, well, I can't replace it for that. You know what? You will be able to replace for it. You have to search a little harder. It's out there. You have to search. I mean, the deals are there. You just have to look harder now. So that's what I would do.
Great. Thank you, panelists, very much for taking some time out of your busy day to be with us today. And I'll turn it over to Stacy.